And today we are joined by our returning guest, Dr. Shiva, who's running for the United States presidency. And his website is Shiva for, which is the numeral for, president.com. So Shiva for president.com. And he is running as an independent. So welcome, Dr. Shiva, to the show today.
How are you doing, Mike?
I'm a little freaked out, actually, about what's going on in the world. And I'm being called an anti-Semite for saying that it's wrong to bomb women and children. So that's how I'm doing, Dr. Shiva. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Mike. And at our last meeting, Mike, I bashed the hell out of Trump and Kennedy. And I know, don't take this the wrong way, but after that, you said Kennedy was a big hero, an American hero. And I was going to call you up on that. But the reality is, Mike, whether it's you or every average American who really loves this country, what's happened is the issue of Zionism, if there's one issue that exposes those people who are truly American and those people who hate America, frankly, hate Jews, hate the rights of self-determination, it is on this issue of Zionism. Kennedy is a freaking Zionist. Trump is a Zionist. Every presidential candidate running is a rabid Zionist. And that sharpness must go into discussing what is Zionism, that Zionism is racism, that Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. And in fact, Zionists collaborated with the Nazis during World War II to butcher Jews. So the term genocide, the policies of genocide go hand in hand with cultural nationalism, Mike, because one race is better than the other. And this, unfortunately, was what drove Christian Zionism when it came to the United States. So when you look at the United States today, what has happened in the United States, Mike, is the Zionism has essentially hijacked, even at the working class level, Christian Zionism. You have these, quote unquote, I want to put double quotes around Christian Zionists, who have taken this eschatological view. It's a big term that means the view Armageddon is going to come one day, and we have to make sure the Jews head back to Jerusalem. And when the homeland is set up, then Christ is going to descend and we're all going to be free. This is this quote unquote Christian Zionist view. There's 70 million Christian Zionists in the United States. So think about that. There's only 14 million Jews. So there's far more Christian Zionists than there are Jewish Zionists. In fact, there are many Jews who are anti-Zionist, and this needs to be understood. So to everyone listening, we cannot allow these genocidal maniacs, when you expose Zionism, to say you're anti-Semitism. So Zionism is actually anti-Semitism. In the Warsaw Ghetto fights of World War II, where Jews were starting to arm themselves to fight in these very concentration camp-like ghettos against Nazis, it was the Zionists, Mike, who collaborated with Israel to disarm the Jews, Mike. This is something that everyone needs to understand. Zionism collaborated with Nazism, very much like many of the black cultural nationalists in the 1800s would collaborate with the KKK, because they had this view of separatism. We're going to go back to Africa, Marcus Garvey. So the concept of one cultural nationalist group collaborating with another on the basis of racism was a twin pair. So Zionism collaborated with Nazism against Jews. So this is something we need to educate people on. So Zionism is anti-Semitism. And in the United States, Mike, what's now happened is every politician, you can go look at AIPAC's list, it's more than 3/4 of the House of Representatives of Senate has to bow down to Israel, Mike, has to bow down to Zionism to get elected. And that's why if you look at every candidate, every one of them, Democrat and Republican, Booby fucking Kennedy or Donald freaking Trump or Vivek the Snake, all of these people are all Zionists, because Zionism means that you believe that it's right for an occupying force, the chosen people, to establish their quote unquote homeland and to butcher Palestinians. Go look at Booby Kennedy's tweet feed. Go look at Trump's tweet feed. Go look at Nikki Haley's tweet feed. Go look at DeSantis's tweet feed. Vivek the Snake is just a slime job, because one day he says this and another day he says that. But fundamentally, these people have no backbone to stand up against Zionism.
It's clear that, just to back up some of what you're saying there, it's clear that Donald Trump is all in with Israel. Anything, he said it explicitly, anything Israel needs, he would provide as president. I guess that means endless weapons, endless funding. This seems a lot like a racket to me, where America gives billions of dollars to Israel. Then some of that money finds its way into groups like AIPAC that then threaten members of Congress and senators, threaten, oh, we're going to primary you if you don't support Israel. So wait a minute, you're using our own money to threaten our so-called representatives to do your bidding in Israel. Now we can send 2 carrier strike groups to the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. We can't put troops on the southern border of the United States and defend our own borders. But Johnson, the new speaker of the GOP, is anything for Israel, freaking nothing for America. That's the message that I'm getting from the GOP right now.
Yeah, Mike, I think this is a very good transition to talk about, from a systems analysis, how Zionists have hijacked America, Wall Street, Hollywood, academia. And that's what we're talking about. Ultimately, the victims of this are two peoples right now, the Palestinian people and the American people. And I want to intersect this. The Zionists who do not care about our borders will send, as you said, 2 aircraft carriers to protect Zionists. I really like to, I don't know why they're calling it the Israel-Hamas war. Everyone also needs to know, Mike, Hamas was created by Israel. Hamas was created by Israel. In 2019, Yossi Cohen, who's the head of Mossad, who's been tagged to become the next prime minister of Israel by Netanyahu, was in Qatar telling them keep funding Hamas. It's very important to understand this nuance. Among the Palestinian people, there were secular, which means non-religious liberation organizations fighting for the people of Palestine. So it is very important that Zionism created a radical Islamic thing to make this secular struggle look crazy. So they funded Hamas to be the crazy wing, to, in fact, wanted them to be the leadership wing so they could say, see, these people are nuts. So the secular wing of the Arab movement was diminished. And this is openly talked about. Netanyahu talks about, you can find all the videos. Yossi Cohen was in Qatar. And this is out there. But none of the mainstream media wants to say, how do these people on these gliders come over into Israel? When Israel supposedly has the most amazing security system where every microsecond they're using satellites, the most advanced AI system to surveil this. If you go look at the December 2012 issue of The Economist, Mike, and I don't know if The Economist, by the way, one of the Rothschilds used to run and own The Economist, but in the 2012 issue, it has this wild war going on in Israel and Hamas on a hang glider, Mike, and Netanyahu on a hang glider fighting over Israel. I don't know if you've seen this image. It's almost they're foreshadowing what's going to be coming, but it needs to be understood that Zionism loves when they have the radical element. Indian Brahmanism loves when some crazy radical Muslim guy does something in India. Now they can bring all their forces, say, see, all the Muslims are like this. Zionism is the one that supported Hamas. So when I see Hamas is doing this, replace Hamas with Israel, okay? Because if Hamas truly cared about the Palestinian people, their liberation, it would have armed all of them, Mike. You would have had popular militias. They haven't done that. They've kept it as a standing army because it can be controlled. But I think we need to recognize, to your point, what has been occurring with U.S. policy since 1948 to today was hijacked. And that hijacking was to support Israel. Now, what is Israel? Israel fundamentally is a military base that serves imperial interests, British interests, and now U.S. interests. So it must be understood that the British colonialism, British imperialism, U.S. imperialism, when they saw that strip of land, Mike, in Palestine, they were eyeing that for a long time, long before even Herzl came around, long before Zionism existed. They wanted that land, Mike, because it is just go look at where Palestine is, right? In between a lot of the trade, the Middle East, it's a strategic East property. So when this Zionist movement came, they saw this as a huge opportunity to bring the Zionists over to Palestine. They knew it was going to create this problem, Mike, but that's what they wanted. Britain always wants national divisions. They go carve up countries. They did it in India. They did it in Africa. And that's what they did in that region. They knew it was going to cause a problem. British imperialism loves problems because whenever there's nation state wars, they can come in, they can try to be like they're the peacemakers, but ultimately control that situation. So the entire area of Palestine was targeted by imperialism for profiteering interests. So it just so happened these Zionists served that purpose, Mike. And Zionism doesn't give a damn about Jews. It's absolutely fine funding Hamas to create this war. And if we go look at Zionism, the United States, Zionism controls the financial system. Zionism controls Hollywood. Zionism controls academia. And why do I call it Zionism versus Judaism? Because in all these sectors, if you say anything against Israel, you're gone. Look at all the, I think, close to 600 A-list actors have signed this pledge, basically saying that we should not stop this war until we get the hostages, okay? Basically supporting the butchering of Palestinians. And if you look at all those actors who've signed that, Mike, they're all what you call the A-list. The B or C list have signed the other pledge, okay? Because in order to be an A-list actor, you're not going to get there without paying homage to Israel. And every 3 to 4 years, you'll see a movie coming out in Hollywood, always talking about the abuse that took place to the Israelis, but never talking about the Palestinian conditions. I think there was one movie that in 1984 with Diane Keaton, and everyone should watch it, called The Little Drummer Girl. And it exposes how Mossad as a security unit of Israel operates and how they actually, Mossad's slogan, Mike, is through deception, thou shalt win war. Let me repeat that again. Through deception, thou shalt win war. That is the entire basis of Israel's approach on how they quote unquote win wars or execute massacres.
I don't recognize the philosophy of some of these people anymore. It's because if they can one day declare that this group of people are worthless and animals and subhumans and that they can justify killing them, the next day they can declare that against you or I. None of us are safe when these philosophies exist on our planet.
Yeah, Mike, I think you nailed it there. And by the way, I think what we need to recognize, this genocide, I come from a group of people called Tamils, Mike, in South India, okay? If you go back to the 1980s in a place called Sri Lanka, the Tamils were being butchered in the same genocidal war by the group of people there, supported, believe it or not, fueled by Mossad and Israel again. And the Buddhists in Sri Lanka were butchering Tamils, Mike. So they took Buddhist philosophy and then they conjured it into a nationalism and they justified genocide. So we have to be very aware that the religious hierarchies and the political hierarchies, when they meet, it's quite a dangerous mix, Mike, because they can take teachings, mix it with nationalist or cultural nationalist political ideology to justify genocide. This was done all over the world. It's every major religion. Islam did it. Hinduism has done it. Christianity has done it. Buddhism has done it, which is ahimsa. The tenet of Buddhism was thou shalt do no harm, right? Harm no life, kill no life. But in Sri Lanka, the same philosophy was practiced. So this is a huge opportunity, a wake-up call, Mike, for us to really reflect on what the hell's going on. They do not want working people, Mike, crossing the conscious boundary and getting involved in the anti-Zionist movement, particularly in the United States. They do not want a movement coming up bottoms up that intersects, wait a minute, my condition in America is directly related to the butchering of Palestinian people. The fact that my tax dollars are going there. So they do not want the broad mass of American people rising up from below, Mike, particularly working people. I'm saying exposing is good, Mike, right? And we all do that. But we have to build a bottoms up movement, Mike. Without that, nothing's going to change in the world. We'll just be 10 years from now. Guarantee you, Gaza's not gone. There'll be another incident somewhere else. Okay.
That's right.
And so the establishment has gotten very good to training people. You know what? You guys can't do anything. We'll go in and butcher. We'll commit genocide. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Do something. Yeah, your protests don't mean anything. But what history shows, and it comes out of the United States in the late 1800s and 1900s, when working class people, Mike, when we mobilize bottoms up movements, that is where the power is. And the eye on the ball that we all need to keep is everything that is done by the establishment is for us to give power back to them. This is why Booby fucking Kennedy is running as an independent. This is why he stole our slogan, because he knows that our movement, my run for the presidency, I represent the broad mass of working people. He's a fake, Mike. He's not a true American hero. He's a fake American hero created by the swarm. Trump is another fake American hero. Tulsi Gabbard is a rabid warmonger. She's a warmonger. She supported going into Iraq after 9/11. She supported defending Israel on this. So all these people say the right things. They're coming from top down. They're promoted on mainstream media, Mike. They're pushed on there. And it's time that people start connecting the dots and realize, where does real change come from? And they need to look back to the 1800s and 1900s in the United States when working people mobilized bottoms up. They do not want the plumber, the electrician, the engineer, the nurse to start getting these concepts and becoming anti-Zionist. Imagine all the network engineers in Wall Street walked off their jobs in support of the Palestinian people, following their models of existence, Mike, because they cannot do it. They're highly insecure people. They've never done it. The only thing that they have, Mike, access to the media, playing these roles, acting like they're fighting for us. That's all they have, Mike, acting like they're doing it for us. They've never, ever had to put their life on the line. They've never had nothing in their bank accounts. They've never had to do that, Mike. And that's what this country was built on. That is what real freedom is, where you break the chains of slavery. These people want to enslave us because they're slaves. Freaking Trump is a slave to the swarm. Kennedy is a slave to the swarm. Biden is a slave to the swarm. Clintons are the slave to the swarm. They're just different flavors of it. But we have to stop bowing down to them, Mike. This is this concept of Zionism, Brahmanism. It's the upper caste. And we have to honor ourselves, Mike. And that's what the movement for truth, freedom, health is. That's what our campaign is about. And that's why so many people, even though they try to suppress what we're talking about here, Mike, people are getting it because at the heart of people, they know truth, man. They know what real love is. They know what real fortitude is. They know what real courage is. And we got to stop promoting these guys like Kennedy or Trump or Biden. All of these people, we have to, it's cutting the umbilical cord. We have to honor the working people of the world, of people who actually struggle. Again, I believe the future is offline, Mike, because of what's going on social media. So people can go to shiva4president.com. And when you go to that website, number one, you can volunteer. Notice I haven't even asked for money here, Mike. I graciously ask you, talking about donations. But when people donate to our campaign, Mike, we actually give them knowledge. We give them books. We give them course material and how to start thinking about this from a systems perspective. This is about building a movement beyond left and right, Mike. When people go to that website, they can download a flyer. It's a one-page flyer. They can print it in their libraries, on their printers, and they can hand it out. It explains to people who the swarm is, how these people are killing our children, and how we get out of it. It gives a solution and the real problem. But we're building a ground movement, Mike. That is the only way we're going to save the United States, for that matter, the working people across the world, from this kind of butchering that's happening in Palestine or the killing of children that's happening slowly in the United States. We have to build a bottoms-up movement, and we have to break from these people like the Kennedys, the Trumps, the Sanders, all these people. They're the not so obvious establishment. We have to cut our cord, Mike. Thank you. I'm glad we had this conversation.
Thank you. you, Dr. Shiva. Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you being able to take the time to go through all of this. We've covered a lot of ground here today. And your website is shivaforpresident.com, as we gave out earlier.
Yep.
Thank you so much. I'll be interested to see the comments on this interview. And I look forward to speaking with you again as we move forward here, because things are going to get very interesting. Will you come back on?
Definitely, Mike. Yeah, we should do this and invite any of these people for debates, man. I'll take any of them on. Vivek the Snake, Tulsi Gabbard, Booby Kennedy, Trump, all of them. Invite them to have a debate on Zionism. Are they willing to do that?
All right. We will extend that offer.
Yep.
We will extend that offer and see if anybody wants to join us and do that.
Great. Be well, Mike. Be
Okay.
the light.